well, thank you, and I appreciate that introduction, Jim, talking about the capacity highways and your business, because one of the things I want to talk about a little bit is asset management of the highway system. So there's a tie there, and you're right, it's all about budget. So, but first, I think maybe I put this up here. I think this group was actually the first opportunity I had to make a presentation when I took on my new role just over a year ago. So this is sort of like a mini homecoming. And I may have put this slide up as well. I think that this is something that people ask all the time, which is, we pay the fourth highest gas tax in the country, and how is that possible? Well, you're, excuse me, you're correct. At 49.4 cents a gallon, the state gas tax is one of the highest in the country. We are also one of something, I think it's 4 or 5 states that depend solely on the gas tax for transportation. Other states use a combination of general fund money, gas tax revenues, federal gas tax, and whatnot. So in Washington State, the gas taxes collected at the pump pays for the transportation system. And that money is allocated, as shown up here. The first 3 numbers on the left, the nickel, the 9.5 cents, and the 11.9 cents, are the 3 gas tax packages that the legislature has passed since 2003. And the funds collected from that part of the 49 cents is devoted solely to projects that were identified in the package that was passed. And so, for instance, the Belfair bypass I'm going to talk about in a few minutes is part of that 11.9 cents. That money is directed solely at the bypass, and it's actually a line item in the legislation that says you will take this money and go build that project. So those are all project identified expenditures from that collection. And then all the way on the right, there's 4 cents a gallon that goes to pay off bonds that were issued to do work pre-2003, and those bonds are still being paid off with that part of it. 11 cents per gallon goes to the cities and counties. It's distributed out to the local road network. And then the 8 cents a gallon is what is left for the state DOT for maintenance and operations of the state highway system, for preservation, for safety improvements. So all of everything other than those major capital projects has to pay for out of that 8 cents a gallon. So that's how that all fits together. So I want to talk today a little bit about, this is a map that shows the various projects that you will see going on in your general area this summer. In addition to this, I ran a report that says, tell me all of the various expenditures and projects that are going on in Mason County in our 2-year funding cycle that goes from July of 17 to July of 19. And that number comes back at about $28 million. And then between July 19 and July 21, there's another $32 million going to be invested in Mason County projects. So there's a lot of work going on that's not necessarily represented in what's happening this summer. Things like the Belfair bypass will be picked up at the end of the 17 to 19 timeframe, for instance, so that's a big investment. So the Belfair Widening Safety Project in SR3, this is a job that a lot of people who live in Belfair endured for a very long time, and if you're one of those, I thank you sincerely. We started talking about this a long time ago. The funding was sort of turned on and off, and finally the funding was provided to do that job. It's on the order of about $20 million. And that job added sidewalks, extended the left turn lane, put in stormwater treatment facilities, updated lighting and signals, and I was invited to go to the ribbon cutting, and on the way there I saw like 4 people walking through town in Belfair on a sidewalk. It was amazing. There was a couple of people on bicycles on the side of the road, and so this, I think, turned out to be a great job, but between the utility relocations and all the construction, it did take a long time, and we appreciate everybody's patience, and it seems to have turned out pretty well. This is a bridge job, Kennedy Creek. This is an area on 101, gets about 25,000 vehicles a day, and you can see there's a this picture here shows on the right, it shows a column that's had some deterioration. So this is a typical for us bridge preservation job. We inspect our bridges on a regular basis, and we identify what needs to be done to keep them up to codes and in good working order. And so there's going to be some column repair work done on that bridge. And our bridges generally are designed to last for 75 years, but with the regular maintenance we provide, they last significantly longer than that in many cases. So this is a job you'll see mostly trucks coming in and out of the area, but should have very little impact on the actual traffic flow through 101 there. So 102, on 102, this is the Dayton Airport Road, the road that goes out to the State Patrol Academy. We have a maintenance facility out there. The prison, there's a racetrack out there. This road will be chip sealed, and so that will be done during the day. And I think you've all been through the chip seal ordeal before. It's a great way to seal the surface to preserve the life of it, but it's an iterative process when you go out and put the rock down and put the oil down and then come back and stripe it. And so, but you will see this going on that little piece of what really until a couple of years ago I didn't really understand was a state highway, SR 102. So fish culverts, we have a huge need for replacing fish culverts, and 3 years or so ago, the state was found to be liable to replace about 900 culverts on the west side, mostly between the Canadian border and just south of Olympia, to allow for fish passage. We were directed to complete that in 16 years. It's well over a $2 billion effort. It's not funded. It's partially funded, and so we are knocking off these as fast as we can. This is a relatively big one. This is on 101, the Coffee Creeks, right there at Matlock area, and it's about a $24 million fish passage project. It's going to replace these 3 culverts that you see in the picture. And this is the stream alignment is in blue where it cuts across the interchange there. And so much of this work will also be offline for the most part of creating a new stream bed and putting in new culverts. And sort of a side interest is this is the first fish passage project that we will have done by a method called design build, where essentially normally where we put together a whole set of plans and put them out for bid, and it says go build this, here's all the dimensions, here's everything you need to know, it needs to look like this. In this case, we go out to a contractor and say, here's the requirements for a fish passage. It has to allow for this kind of flow and meet this criteria. And we need you to maintain traffic during construction. And at the end of the day, the configuration of the roadway needs to meet these criteria. Now you go figure out how to do it and tell us how much it's going to cost. And so the design builder, it puts some of the design in the contractor's hands. And we get a lot of innovative ideas, we get better prices, and it's turned out to be something we're using more and more in our general roadway jobs, but this is the first one we're trying for fish passage, and I think it's going to work out really well. We're negotiating with the contractor right now on some ideas they have, how this could come together, what this culvert would look like, and some location issues. And so there's, you will see this work starting probably this fall and continuing realistically for through probably the next summer and a little longer. So we're going to do some paving on 16, left lane, both directions. The right lane was done a few years ago. This will be primarily done at night. Most of our high volume roads we pave at night. It's about a $2 million project. I put in some work we're doing on the Hood Canal Bridge. I'll be brief, but I know that while the Hood Canal Bridge technically is not in Mason County, it's like that elephant that when it rolls over, everybody feels it. So, if the bridge is closed, you get more traffic through here. You have to plan some of your routes. If you head that direction, you're looking at closures. And so we do have some work on the Hood Canal Bridge. We are doing some mechanical work. What is shown there are the big rollers, the guide rollers, that when the draw span opens, those rollers are what keep it squared up and true as it rolls in and out of place. Those rollers take a lot of wear and tear, and so we are replacing those as well as updating the gearboxes that drive that operation. And that's one of the gearboxes right there. One of the things that if you go to our website, along the bottom of the screen, that's actually a screen capture of the top piece of a web page. There's little email/text updates. If you go to one of our web pages and see that, and you click on there, you can subscribe for information on a various number of topics. The Hood Canal Bridge, you'll get closure information. Tacoma HOV, you'll get information. So you can get into the system to get email and text alerts on various programs, activities, places. Just be prepared, because some of them have some overlaps, and you could all of a sudden get up in the morning and find you've got 40 new text messages and 200 emails, so choose wisely. 101 at Lynch Road, this is a project that I think a lot of you are interested in. We've been talking about this for a while. We've been working with the county on this, and it's proving, from my opinion, to be a little bit more, not problematic, but it's a challenge, because we originally had been having discussions about building a frontage road from Taylortown down to Camilchi. And we worked with the county on that. The county did some work on that. And at the end of the day, we got some funding from the legislature to build an improvement there. And that funding was not enough to build a frontage road. And in the interim time, in talking with the county and the neighbors and property owners and the tribe, it turned out there wasn't as much support for a frontage road as there was at one time. And so we went out and met with the public, and we did we brought some displays, we asked some questions, we met with the county again, we met with the tribe. And so we are looking at potentially making improvements to the intersection itself, or providing another way to make left turns. And we're preparing to go and talk to the county commissioners in the next few weeks, I think, and talk to the county commissioners some more about the plan. But the bottom line is, we were hoping to build something this summer, and it's likely that it won't be till fall or maybe a little beyond that, as we dive into what is the best solution within the budget that we have. So we will be going out and talking to the public again about this project. The good news, if you will, is this is a graph showing the accident history out at the Lynch Road intersection with the highway. And the scale is such that the accident rate is continuing to go down steadily. 2015 and 2016, in each of those years, there were 3 accidents at that location that we recorded. And we get reports from the State Patrol or any law enforcement agency whenever somebody responds to an accident. So this accident rate has continued to go down. It went up a little bit in 13 and 14, but the line at the bottom that connects some of those bars are the accidents that involved an injury. So the bars represent any sort of a vehicle accident, and the other part of the graph is an injury accident. So in 2015, there was 1 injury accident that year at that location. That went to 3 in 16. So each of the 3 that were there were an injury. So our goal is to continue to drive this down, of course. And so the good news is that as we made changes out there, and as we looked at speed limit and added turn lanes and things, it has gone down, but there's more work to do. So, and then the Belfair bypass is, as I said, is funded. It's about $68 million. It's the funding starts in July of 19. And then extends over a 6-year funding period in the legislation. And we were just talking again this morning, actually, about we have some public outreach money that we're going to try and tap into, so that we can go out and start engaging you all soon, before the bigger project funding comes around, because the red line shows the bypass route, and essentially that's the route that the bypass will go on. It's those 2 endpoints that we need to come out and talk more about. At the 302 end down by the high school, there's been some construction on the high school property that impacts the original concept for making that connection. So we want to talk about that. There's talk about a new connection and potentially, I think, a park and ride up at Log Yard Road at the other end. So how do all these things tie together? What do those endpoint connections look like? That's our real question right now. But we have an environmental document that was completed on this that due to time span, it'll have to be updated, but there's been a lot of work done on this. There's been an alignment identified, so we're preparing to come out and start our public engagement early and then jump into this hard when the funding is available. And that's all I have. So, do you want to do questions or bring up the next speakers or?
No, you have time for questions.
Okay. So, what questions do you have for me? Yes.
On the Belfair bypass, how many off routes or offshoots are you going to have?
We, in the original design, we said that there was a possibility to put a midpoint connector in, but this is envisioned as being what we call a limited access highway. In other words, there will not be driveways off of the bypass every several hundred feet, or this is meant to be a true bypass.
But if you live on 106 and you want to take the bypass to bypass Belfair, is there going to be an offshoot for that?
I don't know that. I think that's something that, and I know that the city and I think the county is engaged a consultant to start asking those kind of questions, because I was told that those discussions were going on about connections and what they would look like. So I think those are all things to be determined going forward. Yes, sir.
A few years ago, there was a bridge out by the reservation that many of us liked a lot, but it was torn down and replaced completely rather than repaired. Just high level, what are some of the considerations of whether to repair it versus just replace it? And is there usually like something like that, would there be a public outreach effort to get input from the community or something like that?
There certainly is. If a structure is historic, if it's been determined by the State Department of Archaeology or the County Historic Preservation Office, if it has been decided it is historic, then there's a process that we go through to determine what impacts we'll have and what mitigation is required. So in the case of a bridge that you're describing that maybe was taken down, there's two things that we look at for bridges. Are they structurally deficient or functionally obsolete? So if a bridge is functionally obsolete, it means it can no longer do its job. Maybe it's only 20 feet wide. It was built in the day when 20 foot was wide enough. Well, 20 foot, depending on how many vehicles want to use it, is not wide enough anymore. Maybe it was a truss that had an overhead member that was only 12 feet tall. And so functionally obsolete means it just can't do the job that we need it to do anymore. So that could be a consideration. And then structurally deficient means that it's either in a condition or it was designed to not carry modern loads. In other words, it's not strong enough anymore. So then we look at, can we fix that? And can we repair the bridge at a cost that makes sense versus have to replace it? So those are the factors we weigh, and at the end of the day, it's either deemed to be, no, it has to be replaced. So then do we, sometimes it's take pictures, make a video, save some piece of it. In one case up by Puyallup, we have a bridge that we replaced. It was moved in a big steel truss that was moved in one piece and set on a lot next to the bridge. And we are going through a process of trying to find a buyer. And that's part of our mitigation, is we have to spend like 24 months trying to find somebody to take it. We will give them the bridge, and I think it's $1 million it would cost us to dispose of it, that they can use to relocate it and maintain it. So mitigation could be any range of things.
I appreciate that. I have another quick question. Going back to your graphic. Don't necessarily want to get into it. I'm not sure. It looked to me like it was necessarily quote going down. It'd be interesting to see what your trend line would look like. Because it looked like you started it out at, looks like there was an outlier in the very earliest year that was very high. Suppose you started your trend line 1 year later, that would be interesting to see the slope of that. Anyway, we don't have to go into it.
Okay. No, that's good.
Thank you, John.
Okay, thank you.